We could get everybody to take their seats and get started. Good evening. My name is Sean Schaefer, and I'm the chairman of the Eastern County Republican Party. And I want to welcome each and every one of you to tonight's Texas Legislative District 60 candidate forum. Tonight's event is very important to the continuance of our God-given freedom, our constitutional government in our country and state. I hope that you find it informative as each of you decide your choice of who will represent our district in the Texas House of Representatives. I want to personally thank our candidates Kevin Downing and Mike Lang for being here tonight. I want to further thank them for being willing to run for public office and put forth the time and the effort that it takes to put themselves and their families in the limelight. And whatever our differences of opinion are, I think we owe these men a great deal of gratitude for being willing to run. And for that reason, let's give them a round of applause. I'd also like to thank the Eastland County Tea Party for their help in making this event happen. I want to thank our timer down here. He's sort of the policeman of the debate, of the forum. Precinct 9 Chairman Jim Cowan, our moderator, I guess we call him the hammer. Precinct 1 Chairman Bill Dow. And also like to thank Robin Hayes and Ruth York for all their help in making this event possible. At this time, I'd like to introduce my pastor from Calvary Baptist Church, Cisco, Texas, Pastor Danny Reed, and he's going to lead us in a word of prayer. This time, would you please stand?
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, Lord, as we come tonight, we have much to be thankful for. Thankful for this day that you've given us. Thankful, Lord, for your mercy, for your grace. Thankful, Lord, that by your grace, Lord, that we're citizens of this great nation. Lord, we realize tonight that the freedoms that we enjoy don't come free. And so, Lord, we pray tonight for military, for police, for firefighters, for EMS, for all of those who each day put their lives on the line for these freedoms that we have. Lord, we realize as well that this country is not perfect. But as we gather tonight, I pray, Lord, that you help us to realize that we each have a part to play in making it better. So, Lord, help us that we'd have wisdom and discernment as we consider these candidates who are before us tonight and for these who are running for president. Lord, we pray, Lord, I pray tonight that you just raise up leaders who would stand on your word. Pray, Lord, that you would raise up leaders, men and women who would be men and women of vision, men and women of character, men and women of integrity. Lord, again tonight, we just thank you for these two who are here and pray, Lord, that you bless them, bless their families. Lord, just be with us as we gather tonight and do this for your glory in Christ's name.
At this time, if you'll remain standing, and we're going to have the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic Thank you. You may be seated at this time. At this time, I want to introduce our two candidates, Kevin Downing and Mike Lang. And I'm going to yield the floor to them for opening statements. We're going to go in order of the way they were drawn for placement on the ballot. And Kevin Downing drew first place on the ballot, and so Kevin will go first.
And as they go up, let me just, as the moderator, let you know that there was a committee of 5 that worked on these questions, so they're not just mine. I was on that committee. In addition, we have a format. Each one of the gentlemen will have 5 minutes just to introduce themselves to you before the question starts. We will alternate between who goes first. Mr. Downing is going to give the first opening statement, and Mr. Lang will follow. Then I will be asking you questions in the other order. So the very first question will be going to Mr. Lang. The times on these questions are going to be 2 minutes. 2 minutes for the other side, 1 minute rebuttal, and another 1 minute rebuttal. If we get to 8:15 and we haven't gotten all the questions done, then we will be cutting it off. We try to prioritize the questions from 1 to about 15 or 16. That is what we ended up with. They will each then get a chance to give a closing statement of 3 minutes, and that will conclude it. We have asked both of them because I already know, because I had 3 people since I've been here ask me, are you asking this question? Are you asking this question? And I probably am not asking every question that could be asked. So both gentlemen have indicated when we visited before we got started that they'd be willing to stay afterwards and field individual questions that you might have for them. In addition, Sean, I think you did not mention we have Mountaintop Church to thank for the use of this facility, as well as the Will Community Center. And we do thank you for that. Thank you. Mr. Downing, the floor is yours, sir.
I appreciate everybody coming out tonight. I hope everybody's doing well. My name is Kevin Downing. I want to tell you a little bit about myself. I think there are probably 3 groups of people in the room tonight. There are those that support my opponent, Mr. Lang. There are those who support me. And there are hopefully some that are undecided out there. And those are who I want to address my comments to primarily. Again, I'm Kevin Downing. I'm 54 years old. I was born in Abilene, just down the road. Raised in Hereford, up in Canada. Raised on my grandfather's farm. Raising horses, cattle, wheat, milo, corn, and a lot of birds. I went to West Texas State after graduating from Hereford. I met my high school sweetheart there in high school, and we went to WT playing tennis. After I got out of WT, I graduated with a BBA in management from WT, and I moved from Canyon to the big city of Fort Worth. That's a pretty good move for a family. Went to work in the banking world. I've been in the business world as a banker for over 31 years. Banks in Granbury, Stephenville, Toller, Glenrose, Fort Worth, all throughout Fort Worth and surrounding small towns. We have 3 kids, my wife and I. We have April, 21, who's graduating from college next month, and she already has a job, and she's off the payroll, and that's a real plus. I have a son who just started at TSTC, who has a part-time job and is committed to paying for part of his school, which just thrills me to death. And I've got a sophomore rep at Glenrose High School, and he's doing wonderful, typical teenager. My wife, we've been married 31 years. She is a school teacher in Glenrose. She's been there 26 years. She's in 2nd grade bilingual. She's been down in the trenches with those kids every day for the last 26 years in Glenrose. Additionally, while I was working, I got went to night school. They didn't have anything online back in the 80s. You had to drive and go to night school back then. I got an MBA in corporate finance from the University of Dallas. And I got 3 different licenses with the SEC to trade stocks and bonds for banks and that. Took a lot of work and a lot of time. While I was working, I also spent a lot of time with nonprofits. I've served on over 30 different nonprofit groups over the last 31 years. Everything from the conservation of wildlife species, endangered species in Glenrose, to battered women's shelters, to children's homes, museums, libraries, enlisted personnel at Carswell Air Force Base, with Fort Reserve Base. It has been a tremendous gift for me to be able to do that and give back to the community in that kind of way. And being in the banking world and being in the nonprofit world does a couple of things for I've worked with a tremendously diverse group of people. I've learned how to listen and how to communicate, how to sit down at a table with people who have different needs, different wants, come from a different perspective, and learn how to come together with a goal and with a consensus that's good for that organization. We have lived in Granbury for 26 years. We've worshipped at Acton United Methodist Church for 26 years. I've served as administrative chair of that church. I've served as chair of the staff parish relations committee, chair of the finance committee. I've served as the building committee for 26 years on every construction project we've had except for one. You would think that gives me a little bit more say on what those buildings look like, but it doesn't. In the Methodist world, everybody gets to have a say. We have 2,100 members in that church, and it's a tremendous church. And every one of those projects came out because we sat down as a group. We hashed everything out, usually over a potluck dinner or something like that. But we came together with something that was better for that church. It's a wonderful place. I think there's 4 things you need to have an effective representative. I think you need somebody from here. I've lived in Granbury and Hood County for 26 years. I have 6 generations of my family that have lived in one of the 8 counties in this district. So not only just West Texas, not just rural Texas, but in this district. I think you need somebody with relative experience. I've got 31 years in the business world and 30 years in the nonprofit world, working with large groups of people and trying to get things done. I think, in a word, the third thing you need is somebody who's a conservative. In every definition of the word, I'm a conservative. Whether it's smaller government, we need to get Washington and we need to get Austin off of our backs. Whether it is lower our taxes, protect the Second Amendment, protect the sanctity of life, protect marriage between a man and a woman. The last thing I think you need is a Christian. I share, I think, most people's Christian beliefs in this neck of the woods. I was born as a Church of Christ member. My grandfather was a Church of Christ leader and minister. And I've been a Methodist my entire adult life. And I look forward to asking for your vote to represent you in Austin. Thank you.
Mr. Lang.
Once again, thank you all for having me here. I'm Mike Lang from Granbury. Beautiful wife here tonight, Katie, sitting in the audience. We have one son, Ryan. He's 24. He's out of the house. And graduated from TCU back in 1984. Joined the Fort Worth Police Department in 1985. Spent 27 and a half years with Fort Worth PD, serving in patrol, 16 years in SWAT, and 10 years in intelligence. And in that time, I've learned to be with the people, serve the people, take care of the people, protect their property, protect their rights. Fundamental basics of being a servant. And that's what I've done for 30 years. I believe it gives me the ultimate job experience to be your state representative. And when you look at everything encompasses the Constitution, what it is, what it stands for us, and what police officers go through, also the military, in defending our rights and defending our liberties and making sure people's rights are taken care of. About 5 years ago, my wife and I decided we were at that age and we said, Lord, we go to Stonewater Church, both Christians, said, put us where you want us. And it happened to be in Granbury, about 12 years ago, but my wife is the county clerk in Hood County. I was elected constable about 3 years ago. And while I was elected constable, I started looking into government. And what I found was it was totally different than what I expected. Even working in the municipal aspect in the city of Fort Worth. I started going to commissioner courts, city council meetings, economic development committee meetings, and then back and forth to Austin. And what I found was the counties and the cities and the people weren't being represented the way they needed to be represented. The counties and cities had trouble with unfunded mandates that pass the cost down to the cities and the counties, and inevitably back to us, taxpayers. So I decided to look into it a little bit more, and the Lord put me where He wanted. And the door started opening up to this position. So approximately 11 months ago, I announced. Now, having the background about 5 years ago, joining the Tea Party, being involved with the Tea Party in Cook County, joining the Republican Party in Cook County, joining the Republican Women's Club in Cook County, being on the executive board of the Republican Party. I started learning all the facets of what was going on and started to be a mini activist, I guess. We had some water problems up in Cook County, and it encompasses 2 of our counties, actually. And went down to Waco and spoke to the board down there about our water problem, which is big here in Texas. And so I started getting involved in as far as experience and things that you need somebody that's involved. You need somebody that's with the people and for the people that actually has done things in the community. And I would appreciate your vote. And this is going to be a big election. We need a lot of things, folks. We are kind of depraved. Pro-life. We had some legislation down in Austin in the past. Sanctuary cities, working law enforcement. I'll tell you what, we're in trouble. We spend a lot of our county money, city money, on illegal aliens. I mean, it's getting worse and worse. And the border, that goes right into the border. So those are some of the things that I'm involved in, I'm familiar with, and I can talk to people about, and do things down in Austin. Thank you very much. I appreciate your vote. Back again.
Yes, Mr. Lang, the first question is as follows. And Mr. Lang, under the leadership of Speaker Joe Strauss, would you describe the legislative record of the House as too conservative, just right, or too moderate? Why? And if elected to serve House District 60, would you support his re-election as Speaker should he be re-elected to the House? Why or why not?
That's one of the reasons I decided to run, is because I felt that the leadership in the House under Joe Strauss was way too moderate. We have bills being passed around the committee that died. We had SB 575, which was a pro-life bill, that had to do with state employees being able to get an abortion with your tax dollars. That came out of the Senate, passed the Senate, went to the House, died in the House. There's several liberal things and moderate things in the House, and I think the House leadership needs to change. And your second part of the question was,
Would you vote for him to be re-elected?
no, I would not vote for him. I'd vote for a more conservative candidate than Joe Strauss.
Mr. Lang.
Well, my understanding is, I think Mr. Strauss is in a 3-way race in San Antonio, so we'll see if he comes out of it. I think the answer hinges on one question, really a two-part thing. Is God calling us to do this? Is it pleasing in His eyes? And is it good for District 60? We had a very conservative fiscal budget, and it passed an awful lot of good things that happened in the last legislature. There were some pro-life things that happened. Alliance for Life and the Tex Life Act were 2 of my largest endorsers, and they were able to get some things too. But I don't think you can get everything 100% of what you want at every time. You've got to keep chipping away. When it comes down to whether or not I would vote for Strauss, I don't know. I think what it comes down to is I'm going to vote for somebody who's qualified, who's fiscally conservative, who's not beholden to any one group or any part of that House at all, and who can best serve where we need to go as a state, and where the hearts and minds of Texas want us to go.
Mr. Lang, 1 minute.
I believe the opposite. We're just going to be different on this issue. I think with Joe Strauss, we did pass some good bills, but when you play games in the House with Constitution and our rights, it's wrong. It's time to stand up, folks. We're losing the pro-life battle. We're losing the immigration battle. We're losing the sanctuary city battle. And all that was stopped in the House. We have a very conservative Senate. The House, we don't. And it's time to change the House.
just reminded, we did pass some pro-life legislation, folks. It takes a lot of work, it takes a lot of effort, and it takes a lot of focus on these issues. So I don't think we did it in all one festival, and I think we have to keep working on it.
Mr. Downey, if you'll remain. This next area of questions has to do with the sanctity of life, and they are as follows. What is your personal belief as to when life begins? Under what circumstances, if any, should a mother have a right to terminate a pregnancy? Is there still a role that the house can and should play in opposition to the work done by Planned Parenthood? And what personal efforts have you been involved in the pro-life fight?
How many folks to that question? We're going to go each one at a time. Start with that first one again.
What is your personal belief as to when life begins?
At conception.
Under what,
Pregnancy.
under what circumstances, then, should a mother have a right to terminate a pregnancy?
I think that's something that's incredibly difficult, and I think that is something that should be taken in advisement with spiritual leaders. I think that we are at a place in our lives and in our society where trying to value the life of an unborn child or the life of a mother is something that is very, very difficult. And I think that having a state, Boston, Washington, whatever you want to call it, mandate what should happen is not the way to go. This is a personal and spiritual issue that should be decided.
Is there still a role that the House can and should play in opposition to the work done by the Planned Parenthood?
Yes, why and how Planned Parenthood got funded at our federal level is one thing. Planned Parenthood needs to be stopped. Planned Parenthood needs to be defunded. Planned Parenthood does not play a role in the society that it originally planned for dedicated to, and it's an abomination for what they do.
And finally, what personal efforts have you been involved in the pro-life fight?
I worked with the Alliance for Life and the Texas Life Pact, the efforts that they had to date on bills that they did get passed in the last legislature. I'm very proud to have those endorsements. Two of the largest pro-life groups in the state.
I believe life begins at conception. Your next part.
Okay. And under what circumstances, if any, should a mother have a right to terminate a pregnancy?
I said life begins at conception, and that's when life begins. So for me, there are some terrible circumstances. There's rape, there's incest, and when you get involved with that, for me being law enforcement, I've seen things, evil things happen, and I've seen women go through that. I haven't gone through that, and I have no idea how to experience that. However, we need tougher. Right now, it's a second-degree felony for rape, maybe the first degree. We need tougher laws for rapists and for people that do that sort of thing. But then you take that portion and you separate it. Now we have an innocent life, and it begins at conception. So I believe that life begins at conception.
Is there still a role that the House can and should play in opposition to the work of Planned Parenthood?
Well, the state and federal government already do it. As far as playing a role in it, I think that right now it's 20 weeks for abortion. It should be incrementally. We can try to get less, but we need to work our way all the way down because, once again, life starts at conception.
Any personal efforts, if any, involved in the pro-life fight?
I worked with Texas Right to Life, which is the largest organization for pro-life, and Ruth's Place in Granbury sponsored them. Open Door in Breckenridge and Cisco area, Eastern area. I've been to events with them, sponsored them. So there's several things that my wife and I have done through that effort, and it's very important to us, and it's a topic we do in the
And if you'll remember. Oh, I was wrong, Mr. Downey, 1 minute for about.
As far as involved in the rights of life, I didn't think about any local things, but supporting local functions throughout the Granbury, Hood County, and that area I've done for years, whether it's Ruth's Place or Prison Member, very qualified I took the question to mean what I've done personally wrong. I just write checks and have some work, but I have done this.
The other was a Brazos pregnancy clinic. My sister also has, I've been involved with working with her and helping them. She lives in Ohio, but she has ICU Mobile, which does sonograms for at-risk women. And so I've helped her with that and helped her to some degree with helping me get that started.
Now, Mr. Lang, if you'll remain for the next question, your question. This has to do with same-sex marriage as a topic. And of course, there's multiple questions, so I may have to divide them.
That's fine.
If you need to. Do you agree with the U.S. Supreme Court decision that required the states to sanction same-sex marriages?
No, I do not.
Why or why not?
First of all, everybody says it's a law, we have to follow it. It's not a law, it's an opinion. Second of all, it shouldn't have gone to the Supreme Court because the Supreme Court doesn't decide on the state's issue. We have the Constitution in Texas, Article 1, Section 32, that states marriage between a man and a woman, period. And that's what we need to be following, let alone the biblical principle of one man and one woman.
Do you? Do you believe an individual's right and their businesses to follow their conscience and refuse to participate in such marriage ceremonies?
Yes, I do. I believe it's right.
And is there a role the House can play and should play to counter the dictates of the Supreme Court on this issue?
Yes, they can. I was surprised they didn't call a special session for it. There's several things we can do with nullification, interposition. But once again, that gets into the House, which I think is a little bit more liberal leadership. And you have to start looking at who's going to vote which way as far as any nullification in the position, and that's because of the funds. We get between 30 and 35% of our funding from federal funds. And we start doing that, then the federal government will fight back. But folks, it's time to take a stand. And that's what I'm here for. I'm here to fight, continue to fight. Been doing it for 30 years, and it's just going to be in a different way. And I don't know about you, but that's why I got into this. I'm tired of electing so-called conservatives. They go down to Austin or go down to D.C. and they don't listen. They forget where they come from, and then they don't vote the way we want them to vote, and our country's slipping away.
Mr. Downing?
Start them over.
Yes, sir. Do you agree with the U.S. Supreme Court decision that required the states to sanction same-sex marriage?
I'm very thankful to have been raised in a Christian family. My father on the name of Jesus Christ is his only begotten Son. I believe that even having a discussion about same-sex marriages is we should never have the confidence. And so now I think.
Do you believe in individual rights and their businesses to follow their conscience and refuse to participate in such marriage ceremonies? Absolutely. Is there a role that the House can and should play to counter the dictates of the Supreme Court on this issue?
Sure there is. I mean, we have an activist judicial system. They are trying to make law, which is what they should do. They're trying to interpret laws from a liberal standpoint. If nothing else, we could follow Abbott's lead, our governor, and call a convention of states and pass our own constitutional amendments if we do that. We need conservative justices in place that are of similar mindset as we, and we wouldn't be having this conversation.
So that's more time. 1 minute rebuttal from Mr. May.
It's all fine and good to say things like that, but when it comes down to it, we had a situation, same-sex marriage in our county, and a wife stood, but as a Christian she stands, and some people say, well, as a Christian she can stand, but she can't do the job we need her to go. Well, my opponent, I don't. I feel we need more Christians in office, and I think our commissioners and our county judge should have stood up and backed the county clerks, period.
I believe that we should have more conservative justices at the Supreme Court level out our judicial system. And to do that, we've got to change our administration. I think she was put into a very difficult position. And I really felt sorry for her. On one side, they slammed her for not going to jail and standing her ground the entire time like the young lady in Kentucky did. And she got slammed from the other side because she cost our county 40 grand. If our judicial system was conservative, we would not be in this position, folks.
Mr. Downing, the fourth question. The federal government is failing to secure our borders and enforce immigration laws. Do you agree?
Yes.
And what can the Texas legislature do to counter the federal inaction?
You know, if the federal government is going to take care of our borders, it is our responsibility. Plain, pure, and simple. This is our border. This is to protect our way of life. The Islamic, jihadists, terrorists, whatever you want to call them, the bad guys are here, folks. We need to stop this now. The legislature did pass $800 million worth of funding to try to address some of the system. It doesn't solve every problem. We're still sending troopers down on a 2-week basis that are not doing any good, and they're stretching our local resources thin, plus you as county taxpayers are still getting paid for it. We need to build on what was passed in the last legislature. We need to secure our border. All of the things we talk about tonight, whether it's quality of life, businesses, economics, taxes, none of that makes a difference if we're not safe when we walk out of here to go to Dairy Queen and get a blizzard and worried about somebody shooting us. We have to secure our border.
Mr. Lang.
Question, please?
The federal government is failing to secure our borders and enforce immigration laws. Do you agree or disagree with that
I
statement?
totally agree.
And what can the Texas legislature do to counter the federal inaction?
Texas legislature did start. They spent $800 million. They did send DPS troopers down. 200, of course, they have 200 new DPS troopers. And I talked to one the other day while we're out block walking in Coleman, and they're starting to cycle in the DPS troopers now. And so that they're going to come back, but it has hurt our communities, or local communities, or rural communities. But the main thing is, and I got to go back to the House, the liberal leadership of the House. In the Senate, Senator Bob Hall brought up interstate compact. And we can get with different states, folks, and we can do our own things at the border. What our $800 million did was send our troopers to the border with no teeth, no prosecution, no detention, and we can't ship illegal aliens out. And with an interstate compact, if we get the wrong president, I pray we don't, but with an interstate compact, what we can do is we can start putting teeth back into the problem. Yes, we're going to have to pay for it, but it's worth it. I spent 10 years in intelligence in Fort Worth, and believe you me, the people are here already, the ones we don't want. So we need to make sure that we just shut that door.
Mr. Downing, 1 minute.
I reiterate, we need to build on the $800 million we've already allocated. The system they put in place does not work. I've said it, he said it. It needs to be built upon, it needs to be revamped, it needs to be more efficient. We have started on that process. We need to continue. This is not an easy problem to solve. But it has to have our attention and our focus. Our lives are the ones that are at stake.
Mr. Lang, 1 minute.
Once again, if we can get something passed out of the Senate, we can sure try to get it passed out of the House. And that is not being done. Now, if we would have passed something with the interstate compact, it would have taken some time, would have had to go back into special session, but I believe at this time it's worth it, and we need to start now, not too late.
Mr. Lang, the next question. This one I've got entitled Federal Laws, Regulations, and Executive Orders versus States' Rights.
Folks, that's a big one. Our president is abusing that left and right every day with his cell phone. And we have everything from WOTUS, Waters of the United States, coming into our rural areas. And thankfully, 15 states sued the federal government, the EPA, And, we're talking about water, our water here, in navigable waters. And what happens if we have a stream coming through, and we have a puddle of water that's adjacent, now we have to pay fees to the EPA. It's a mess. We just heard about the gay rights issue, the marriage issue. That's another encroachment on the states. It's unbelievable the amount of pressure they're putting on Texas, and our Congress people aren't standing up. And yes, we can do things. We can do things like COS, mention the states. It's time, and our people should have been standing up years ago when Obama got elected. And once again, we haven't. I'm tired of it, just like you guys are. And I'm going down to stand for you guys. Period. That's my job, to help out and stand. And if it means I don't go back, then I don't go back. I'm not down there for a career. I'm down there to stand like I've done for 30 years.
Mr. Downing, unknown to Mr. Lang, I did have some questions.
I didn't do it.
That's all right. You actually touched on it. So if it's all right, I'll give you the sub-questions.
Okay.
And Mr. Lang will have a chance to respond if you need to. One of the sub-questions was, what do you believe is the most egregious overreach by the federal government? And then what could the state do, legislature do to counter that? But then the second part was, Governor Abbott has recently announced that the Texas legislature needs to join with other states and call for a convention of states, or COS, that y'all both actually spoke to, under Article 5 of the United States Constitution, and propose amendments to rein in the power of the federal government and its courts. Do you agree or disagree in part?
Well, letting Obama execute executive order, which seems like every week and becoming faster and faster as his term is going on, is sickening. I didn't know we lived in a tyranny or a kingdom. I thought we lived in a democracy. The U.S. Constitution guarantees the states' rights. We need to follow one of the easiest ways, the most direct ways, I should say. It won't be easy. One of the most direct ways is a convention of states. 2/3 of the states can call for this. Three-fourths can approve these amendments. We need to hold true to what our Texas values are, what our independence, what it means to us. We need a government that goes back to what we started with when this country started. It's government, it's limited government of the people, by the people, for the people. No influence.
Mr. Lang, 1 minute.
Well, first of all, it's not a democracy, it's a republic. But actually, I think the biggest one is Article 10. I mean, the states give the power to the federal government, and the federal government has just run us right over, and we've let them. And we've let them, and we've let them, little by little. And like I said, it needs to stop. And I've been in contact with some of the COS people. Actually, there's a district that mirrors our District 60. I've been in contact with them, met individually with them, been to meetings with them. So once again, I'm out in the community. I'm talking to people. I'm already getting things done. And that's how important it is to me.
It comes down to the states limiting the rights of the federal government. That's what it comes down to. The federal government has an overreach, and they have and will continue to for years and years. We, as one of the leaders in this need to stand up for Texas. We need this convention of states. Follow our government, and we can correct this problem.
Mr. Downing, you're first on the next question. That's right. This has to do with education. I have about 4 sub-questions.
Wow, can we do them one at a time?
Is education a federal or state issue?
I'm sorry.
Is education a federal or state issue?
Well, the federal government would like to believe it's theirs. I think it's a state and a local issue.
Do you support school choice, and what should that look like?
So when you're talking about school choice, you're talking about vouchers, or you're talking about school choice?
Whatever you wish to discuss.
All right. I think we have school choice today, folks. You can take your kid, put your kid in whatever school you would like to do. I am against vouchers. We have 31 ISDs in this 8 counties, in this district. Moran's probably the smallest, Granbury's the largest. Doesn't matter the size. In each one of those communities, that school system is either the largest or second largest employer in those communities. We let vouchers in. It will destroy those school systems. It will have a detrimental impact on every one of our communities. But most importantly, it will create a two-tiered education system where we have the haves and the have-nots. The voucher system will not work for this district. It is not in our best interest. I put my middle child in private school. We took him out of Glenrose because he had a learning disability. We needed a very small classroom. We put him in half the room. So private schools, charter schools, they have a definite place in our society, but not at the expense of the kids, your kids and mine, that are in public schools.
There was one more. Do you believe there is a better option to the Robin Hood plan for funding public schools?
There has to be. Robin Hood is outdated and is not an equitable solution. We have to come up with a meaningful, fair method to have a constitutional method to fund our schools. Section 7 of our Constitution. The Constitution says we will provide a public education for the 5 million plus kids in this state. And we, as legislators, or possible legislators, have to come up with what that is. We need to stop spending money on the attorneys. We need to spend it on the kids, and we need to get Robin Hood fixed in court.
Mr. Lane?
Sure would.
Is it a federal or state issue?
Well, right now, they've made it a federal issue with Title I and things like that, nutrition programs, and the state's made it a state issue, of course. But it needs to be brought down to the local level. And talk to a lot of administrators, a lot of teachers. And it goes back to when I grew up. When I grew up, it was more like a charter school. We didn't have all these layers of administration. Parents were more involved. And that's where we need to go back to doing school where it's a classroom. And it's the students.
In other words, do you support school choice, and what should that look like, as well as do you support or oppose vouchers?
I support school choice. No matter where you go, there's going to be just disparaging things. You're going to have schools that are failures. You're going to have schools that are A+ rated now in the way we do the system. But as far as vouchers, no, I do not support vouchers. Just once clear again, I do not support vouchers. And I'll tell you why. First of all, the public education system needs money. 94.4% of our kids K through 12 in Texas go to public schools. That's 94.4%. That's almost all our kids. And second of all, if we have vouchers at this point, what it's going to do is it's going to take your parochial schools, private schools, and your home schools, and they'll have state intrusion, and they'll start having federal intrusion. And if they don't want that, that's why they're homeschooling, that's why they're private, that's why they're parochial. So we have a big problem.
And finally, we were talking about the Robin Hood plan.
Got to change it. It's in the courts right now on how we're going to spend money and not how much, but where it's going to go. And we're supposed to have interim charges and talk about all these things. But folks, once again, this has been going on for 20 years. Why have we waited so long?
Mr. Downing, 1 minute.
Our lieutenant governor has already announced he's going to propose vouchers. We're going to call it something different in my opinion. We call it a special school tax incentive plan. There's a lot of different misnomers out there, folks. Education is under attack, either between some of the appointments that our governor has made, some of the comments our lieutenant governor has made. Our public schools deserve our support. They deserve your attention. You need to look into those issues, and you need to make sure we do not need vouchers in any way, shape, or form, in whatever way they describe it.
Mr. Lane,
Our schools are under attack, but you have to remember, our teachers in the classroom, they're there for a service. They love to teach. That's what they want to do, and they're good at it. Period. And we have to give them the best opportunity to do that. And when we keep taking money out of the classroom, We don't have that. It goes in administration, buses, books, and buildings. It needs to go back to the classroom. It needs to go back to the local level. As far as vouchers, you're going to have intrusion. That's why private schools, public schools, like I said before, and homeschool, they don't want intrusion. They want school choice, and they want to be able to choose what they want to do.
That's right. This topic is water with a couple of longer questions. For the growing population in Texas and whether they can starve us of water or flood us with water, it is imperative that our representatives work to increase water supply and protect the private property rights of Texas. One, you believe in a property owner's rights to the water under his land as well as the right of capture for watershed and crossing private owned lands. And two, what is your plan to increase the water volume in Texas to meet new growth and current needs?
Number one is yes. Groundwater, anything under your land is your land. Now, as far as the state water plan, it was revised in 2012, and 99 water or groundwater districts. The water situation in Texas is big. And what we have to do is make sure that it carries over because we've gotten rain. Our lakes up in Granbury and Palomino are filled up. We can't forget about the drought period. Now, last legislative session, they did some good things. They came up and they said, well, in our next plan, we're going to look at brackish water. They went to map brackish water. They put in the bill that they can pay to do that. There's billions of acre feet of brackish water they can do. They look at desal from the plant in Corpus Christi. So they're looking at things and they're coming along, but the problem is we end up with time. We don't have enough time. I've got 1 minute. But what happens is they have a Endangered Species Act, EPA, where it should take us only a few years to build a reservoir. It's going to take us 20 and 30 years to build a reservoir. That's ridiculous. And that's because of the EPA and TCEQ. We need to get rid of those regulations and get back to our water plan. Any other questions?
No. Mr. Downing, I'll just repeat the two questions and not the preface, since we know it has to do with water. Do you believe in property owners' rights to the water under his land as well as the right of capture for watershed across his privately owned lands? And two, what would be your plan to increase the water volume in Texas to meet new growth and current needs?
Yes, I believe water on our land is ours. I believe that the state's inclusion, both the state and the federal government, through the EPA and through Austin, as an intrusion on brackish water is something that is needs your attention to. Water, if you go east of 35 from Houston to Dallas, those folks usually have plenty of water. God lets it rain. West of here, we don't have water. It just depends on what God wants it to rain. We have a problem with water. Now is the time to address it, and we're not under the gun, and we're not backed into a corner like we were in the drought several years ago. The state started on it. There are components to the plan that make sense. We've done some things and looking at different sources of water, whether it's desal or whatever it might be. We need to continue that. This is not an easy issue. We've got 1,000 people a day still moving into Texas, even with oil prices being at $32 a barrel. We still are job creation. There's still people. There's still many, many people coming. This is something that is going to take our attention from here on, and it's not something that's going to be easy to solve.
Mr. Lang, 1 minute.
Once again, going back to the water, up in Granbury and Palomino area, I've been fighting for water over the last couple of years, permit 5851 up there through the DRA, and that's another problem we're going to have is we need to get with some of these state agencies that deal with water and let them know that basically the elected officials are for the people, and when we have a state agency that is kind of out there on their own, they need to be reined in and remember that this is Texas, we're part of Texas. In Texas, when I talk about state money, that's your money. That's my money. So when we keep talking about Texas money, don't forget that's our tax money.
Mr. Downing, 1 minute.
While the legislators are going to have to address it, it's the administration and it's the bureaucracy that is the problem. EPA is retaining everything, whether it's pipelines, water, whatever it might be. TCEQ is running around. They need to be running around. So this is something that our legislatures need to have oversight on, need to have meaningful oversight, whether it's at the federal level or the state.
And Mr. Downing, the next question has to do with taxation, and I'll preface it this way. On our ballot coming up on March the 1st, or if you early vote, as early as Tuesday, which will close on the holiday for us county. There's a proposition number 1 on that ballot, and it reads as follows. Texas should replace the property tax system with an alternative other than an income tax and require voter approval to increase the overall tax burden. That is on the ballot, yes or no. Do you agree or disagree? Why? What alternatives would you favor, if any? And then finally, should the franchise tax in Texas be eliminated? Why or why?
Our property taxes are too high, even while our property costs are probably pretty reasonable across the state. Our property taxes remain too high. We did a lot to reduce taxes in the state legislature did in the last session. And we need to continue to chip away at what that property tax rate is. The franchise tax rate was slashed by 25%. Property taxes were slashed by $1.6 billion. I think you can continue to build on those changes and on those reductions to get where we need to do. We need the franchise tax removed, but not wholesale in one fell swoop. I think it needs to be done incrementally, meaningfully, without destroying our budget.
That was the last part, so backing up, it has to do with that. Well, there are alternatives to the property tax that you would make.
I think that as we grow our economy, as we bring in new businesses, as we build this job creation, I think there's an alternative there. But I think we have to do it incrementally. A wholesale change in one fell swoop will be devastating to our economy.
Mr. Lang, the proposition states as follows. Texas should replace the property tax system with an alternative other than an income tax and require voter approval to increase the overall tax burden. Do you agree or disagree? What alternatives would you favor to property tax, if any, and should the franchise tax be eliminated?
First, the franchise tax should be eliminated, and incrementally is a pretty good way to do it. Now, the first and tougher question that I'll answer is, I own a house. I pay property tax on it. I want to own it. I don't want the government. I think eventually that we need to get back to owning our own land. The way to do it, I don't think anybody has a hold on that right now of how to do it. I don't want a state income tax. I think we'll see a lot what happens in who becomes president. But I think eventually I'd like to see us own our own property and not have to pay the government for our own property.
Mr. Downing.
I would just reiterate, we can make meaningful changes to our tax system in an orderly and responsible fashion without destroying our economy. There are different ways to do this. First and foremost is let's get this property tax rate going. Let's keep chipping away at the franchise tax. Let's get it to zero, and we will solve this problem.
Yes, Mr. Lang, one minute.
Okay. I think we do need to incrementally do the franchise tax once again, but I think owning our own land is our right, and that's something we're going to have to look up and look into and find the best possible way. And let's start now. It's like everything else. We take it down the road. Let's start now and look and see if it's feasible and what we can do with it. Got it.
Next topic is entitled Fiscal and Economic Policy. The economy in our country is increasingly under duress. Texas has taken a significant economic hit due to the over 70% decline in natural gas and oil prices. One, with the resulting loss of revenue, we fight to shrink the size of government spending in Texas. Two, what proposals do you have to ensure the Texas government doesn't make up for the loss of revenue on the backs of taxpayers? Three, do you agree that in the past, the state legislature has used creative accounting gimmicks to skirt constraints on spending?
Okay, let me answer the first one first. I believe that in Texas, yes, I saw 26 a barrel earlier today. I don't know whether they ended up, but our Texas economy is based on $64 a barrel. So where do you make that up? You don't. I mean, we have some reserves right now, but if that holds the way it is, and there's a lot of factors, the land tax and things like that, but if that holds, we're in trouble. We're going to have to really tighten the belts. And second, what we can do, and the Legislative Budget Board does a lot of these things, but we can take the formula of population plus inflation. And what that would do is that would cap what we spend and how we spend it. Now, if we do have an overage, it should go down to pay for the debt. We're 44 million debt right, or billion right now, and by 2019 it's supposed to be 75 million. So I think population plus inflation would help our budget and our economy.
Mr. County?
Fiscal policy has to do with two things. It has to do with taxes and spending, revenues to the state and how they spend. I think if you put any artificial mandates or caps on that, I think you're asking for trouble if you don't know what your revenue stream is going to be. Our state economy is so predicated, even though it's more diversified than it's ever been, it's still predicated on oil and energy and gas. That is one industry that floats all boats. With it being where it is today, we have two options. Raising taxes, which is not an option whatsoever, in my opinion, ever. And secondly, we start putting constraints on the budget. There is plenty that can be cut out of this budget, I believe. And we have to find the ways of where that's going to be. I think putting state-mandated caps, though, are very, very dangerous things. What was the next question?
Well, there was whether or not we're going to raise taxes, and then the last one was, do you believe that the Texas legislature has used creative accounting gimmicks to skirt constraints on spending?
Yeah, I think in the past, I think obviously the legislature has done this, both the Senate and the House, and I think it's absolutely important that they do that. I deal with budgets every day, and it's something that you deal with. You deal with budgets. You don't have the money coming in, you got to figure out what you're going to spend the money on. We need to make sure that our legislators have accurate, reasonable budgets that with the proper oversight, the proper monitoring. You've got to have faith in it, or it's not worth it.
Mr. Lang, for 1 minute.
Yes, we have a constitutional amendment for our budget, but it's up in the air. The Legislative Budget Board goes, how much do we need? I think we need this, I think we need that. We need more of a formula to control our spending. And going back to the sunset committees, we need to really look at that. That would help our duplication. We can cut taxes by duplicating our agencies right now. And we'd have to really look into that. But once again, we keep going back to the same thing. Our legislature down there in the House is very liberal and very weak. And every time you have liberals in charge, you spend more money. That's why we need to get conservative back.
You know, our state budget's about $409 billion. We passed over $4 billion. They passed over $4 billion in tax cuts. We boosted funding for border security, roads, education. It was a pretty significant budget. But I think it is something that we always have to have oversight over. We have to hold these guys accountable, especially in time from time to time.
Thank you, Mr. Lang. And you're first up on the next question. And gentlemen, just from the moderator's point of view, we've been at this an hour. We will trying to save the softballs to last. So these may not take a full 3 minutes each. The next question has to do with legalization of marijuana. Do you support the legalization of marijuana? Why or why not?
We're having a conversation with what Colorado's doing is foolish. I don't care what it's done to the economy. I don't care what kind of do anything. I don't care what the tax revenue. It's a gateway drug. It's dangerous. And there's no way in the world we need to be criminalized marijuana. Period. That's it.
Mr. Lane?
Yeah, we agree on something, and I agree. I've worked in the industry for 30 years that I've seen pounds and pounds and pounds of it, and folks want to tell you it is a and it starts at a younger age for kids, and not only is it a drain on their lives, but it's a drain on the system, and it's something that we shouldn't even look at.
You need a rebuttal?
Only thing I would add is I've never seen pounds and pounds of only MTV.
You've got 1 minute for another?
No.
No. Okay. And then I think then Mr. Lang, the next one, another softball, has to do with the Second Amendment. Do you support open carry in Texas? And what is your position on private gun ownership in the Second Amendment?
I support the Second Amendment 100%, and I'm glad the folks in here think it is a softball question because there are people out there that don't. President Obama's one of them. And I'll fight for the constitutional rights of the Second Amendment, and I think we should also have constitutional rights.
I've got the highest rating from the NRA in Texas State. Very proud. It's hard to grow up in rural Texas when you're in without guns. I remember driving to high school parking lot with a 30-30 in the back window and a shotgun because you either had to take care of coyotes or some kind of bird season. And today you would be called off of the school property because of that. There doesn't need to be any intrusion on our Second Amendment rights. It's something that we'll always support. It's something that kids have already expressed an interest in. They will be CHL, or it's now a new designation, as they become of age. This is something that is our right, and it's something that we should always have.
Mr. Lang, 1 minute.
I also have the same rating with the NRA, but I also have the National Association of Gun Rights, which is a big one. And they look for people that, of course, are involved in this and really want to fight this. And that's what I'm here to do, is fight this thing. And once again, I've been involved with weapons basically my whole entire life. Taught my wife and son how to shoot. It's just a fundamental right that you can't protect them. And they can take it away from you.
Downing additional minute if you choose to. Thanks. Next topic is transportation, Mr. Downing. One question, what would you do to improve the road and highway systems in Texas?
Well, the roads and highway transportation directly affects how well our economy does. We created over 450,000 jobs last year because of what this economy does, and the transportation system has a big part of what playing in it. Our economy is more diversified than ever, as I mentioned. We passed several bills last session that will improve our roads. TxDOT just received good funding of $400 million for various road projects around the state. It's not as big an issue out here because you get on 20 and you go 80 as fast as you can to get out of that way. You get into the bigger cities and that kind of thing, road congestion is unbelievable. A&M did a study that says they estimate it's between $1,000 and $1,200 it costs people every year waiting in line in cars in traffic jams. TxDOT, in that $400 million, the second project that's in their queue is Ranger Hill, and I'm thinking it's coming out. I don't know the time frame of when they're going to do it, but they're going to widen that grade, they're going to lower that gradient, and that would help, especially for us around here. We have 5 of the top 10 fastest growing cities in the nation are in Texas. We've got to maintain a focus and control of what our roads are. Transportation is incredibly important, and it will be forever.
Mr. Lang?
Yeah, transportation is big. We can't get people where they're going, products, we're going to survive. But what else we need to do is, through TxDOT, it's over $22 billion budget. The contracts we have, TxDOT does a lot of the contracts. So right now, there's a design build contract, and there's 3 of those per year. And it's a private contract basically, but we need to do more of that. We need to open it up. Because those private contracts, they come in under budget and on time. And that would help a lot because I'm not for toll roads. I don't like being taxed on something I've already been taxed on.
Mr. Downey, one minute.
The $4 billion that was allocated for new roads and stuff, there are no new taxes, there are no roads, there are no fees, there are no new tolls. So I think we're accomplishing that. We still need to continue to do it. It is something that is paramount importance to us. So we can accomplish it. We did it this last session.
Mr. Lang, 1 minute. Surrender.
No, sir.
Surrender the minute.
I'll keep talking, and I'm not going to surrender. But, no, as far as the toll roads go, TxDOT has done things, but I'm not for toll roads. There's never been one that I know of. They say the turnpike up in Fort Worth, but we keep paying forever, and that's our process.
Mr. Lang, 13, question number 13, has to do with voter ID. Do you support the Texas voter ID law?
I believe we ought to have ID to vote. We have to have it for everything else. And that leads me into, I'm sorry.
You have, that is a one question.
Okay. And that leads me into the other problem is leadership in our house wants to do driver's permits for illegal aliens. Folks, we do that, what's next? And what's it for? Vote. We don't want that.
So we passed voter ID law several years ago. The appeals court overturned it, and we went back into court, and we're still using it. For the life of me, I can't understand how it's a hindrance to vote because you have a picture ID. It makes no sense to me whatsoever. We should strengthen our voter ID laws. We should continue that. If we don't have faith in what we're doing at the ballot box, we're not going to have faith in anything that we do or who we choose. We've got to strengthen it. We've got to continue to focus.
Mr. Lang, 1 minute.
I'll take my minute, and I know you guys want to go, but once again, it's the lack of leadership in the House and the liberal leanings in the House, and we do need to take care of the illegal alien problem, and that has to be get rid of the permits, no incentives, no in-state tuition for the aliens, no incentives at all, and we've been doing that too long. They're allowing sanctuary cities in Texas. It needs to stop. Enough is enough.
Mr. Downey, 1 minute. Next question, Mr. Downey. If elected, what will be your legislative priorities and why?
I have 3 priorities. One is border security. I think we've got to continue to build on the existing plan. We've got to secure our borders. We've got to be safe in our own country. We've got to find ways to do that. We've got to better utilize the technology that's out there, better utilize the money that's been appropriated, better utilize the personnel that's been voted. Secondly, I think public education is under attack. I've said it before. I believe that we've got to protect our small schools, our independent schools. They are the lifeblood of what our next generation is going to, whether we're going to succeed or not. Whether it's for our way of life or anything else. The third thing is, I think, workforce development. We have 3 great junior colleges, Cisco, Ranger, and also location of the TSDC. It's become much more apparent to me over the last several years when I finally understood that my son was going to have a different trajectory than what I had. He's going to TSDC and he loves it. He's not going to go to a community college. We need cooperative programs between our local schools, our local colleges, and our leading industries, developing those programs that bring our children and our kids into being productive members of society when they're out of school. We want them to be social. We want them to have their religious beliefs. We want them to be productive members of society. We've got some great educational opportunities here that we need to protect and we need to utilize to the best extent possible. Those are the three items.
Mr. Lang, again, what would be your legislative priorities?
Number one, too, would be border security. I think losing our border is fundamental for us. We lose that, we lose just about everything here in Texas. And of course, we've gone over the 2800 million interstate compact and things like that. The second is pro-life. We've got to start valuing life, people. It is from conception, and that's huge. That's going to be a big fight again. It's been every other session. And thirdly, what encompasses everything are individual rights. And for me, the Constitution means other things. It's not just a practical matter. The United States Constitution is what we've been formed on, and the states formed on. So we lose our individual rights, and we get run over by the federal government, and we get somebody like Hillary or Bernie in here, we're going to lose a lot more than just our school and our border. We're going to lose everything, folks. We need to wake up. And I'm the person that will protect that, go down the house and fight, because I've already been fighting.
Mr. Downing, one additional minute. Mr. Lang, one additional minute.
Yeah, I can't surrender. You said that word, and I'm not going to surrender. So I just reiterate what I said is individual rights in the Constitution, of course, the Texas Constitution. And while we're talking about documents, and this is a Republican Party primary, I think we need to follow the Republican Party platform, which hasn't been done. So that's part of being a conservative, too. It's not just a conservative. That's something that we go down there. I've been involved in county convention, state convention as a delegate, and that's us. That's we the people. We form the platform. That's what we do. We form it, and then we have our legislators, elected officials that don't follow it. They're not following what we want them to follow. And it's time to stop.
Gentlemen, I have 8:13 on my clock. Since it's not 8:15, I'm going to take a moderator's privilege and answer my personal question. That I think people are known by the company they keep. And so my question would be, Mr. Lang, I think you were going to start this one. What endorsements are you most proud of?
I would say probably the three top endorsements for me, well, probably more than that. Texas Right to Life is huge for me. Because if we can't value life, then nothing else matters. The second would be Empower Texans, because they want the Republican Party platform. They stand for less government. They stand for conservative. And I also have endorsements from Charles Perry, Bruce Springer, Matt Rinaldi. I've got some pretty conservative people. And once again, I've been part of the Republican movement, the conservative movement. I've been fighting for the movement. I've been involved in the party. So I'm true blue conservative. I'm here to stay.
Mr. Downing.
My endorsements include, I have Hood County Sheriff Roger Deeds, who's a longtime friend of mine. In Texas, I have two Right to Life groups, Texas Alliance for Life, Texas for Life. I'm very, very proud of those. The Texas Farm Bureau unanimously has endorsed me. The Associated Republic of Texas, one of the largest, oldest Republican institutions in the state, started by John Town, has fully endorsed it. Texas Association of Realtors have been unbelievable in this. Texas State Teachers Association, Texas Oil and Gas Association. If there's one place that we differ, is I will not be influenced by Empower Texas or any special interest group from outside of this district. We need to be responsible to us.
1 minute, Mr. Lang.
I'm proud of Empower Texans. They stand for the people. They stand for constitutional principles. They stand for pro-life. And as far as, to pro-life, Texas Right to Life is the largest pro-life organization. Been here the longest. As far as law enforcement, I like Roger, but I've been in law enforcement. I can list you out, and we'll put it on our website. How's that? All the endorsements we have. But when it comes down to it, please look. Look at my endorsements and who else they endorse. What other candidates or what other legislators they endorse. And look at the people that endorse me and the people that endorse my opponent. And you'll find out who's liberal and who's conservative. Just look at who they endorse.
Mr. Dowling, 1 minute.
Well, I couldn't agree more. You need to look at who's supporting both candidates, folks, and you need to look closely. And then you need to look at who the other candidates those groups are supporting, whether it's Empower Texas or the other. You need to look at what their statements are, look at what their positions are, whether it's on vouchers, right to life, whatever it might be. You need to look at who is supporting each candidate. I could not agree more. It will spell the difference opportunities.
Gentlemen, we are at the time where we have designated 3 minutes for closing, and Mr. Downing, be consistent. You'll be our first 3-minute closing, and then Mr. Lang, you'll have 3 minutes to close, and there's not rebuttals on closing.
Thank you. Folks, I appreciate y'all coming tonight. Not a lot of people would do this. We need informed voters. The most dangerous thing we have is an uninformed voter. So it is very admirable, and I appreciate every one of y'all coming in. Speaking to those who are truly undecided, there's a group here that already supported him, a group here already supported me. If you're truly undecided, this is an important night. You need to listen to both candidates, but you need to go do your own research. Look at who's supporting us, as we talked about. There's a very clear distinction in this race. I'm going to support the constituents, the voters, the people of District 60, not anybody from outside of this district. I'm not going to be influenced by anybody from outside of this district. I've been in Granbury 26 years, raised a family. My wife is a school teacher, 26 years. 6 generations of my family are in this district. This is home. Rural Texas is home. This is my way of life. This is our way. I have 31 years of business experience dealing with exactly what we're talking about dealing with up here. 31 years in the nonprofit world doing exactly like what we're talking about. I'm somebody who's going to stand in my own boots. I don't need to lean on anybody else. I'm not going to be tied to any special interest group. I am here to serve the best interests of what is in District 60. This is not a career change for me. I'm a banker, folks. I'm a businessman. This is not something that is going to be a career. 3 things will govern every decision I make. Am I led by God? Is it God's call? Am I listening to what He is directing me? Is it pleasing to His eyes? And is it good for District 60? Those things come about, we'll make the decisions. Thank you.
Thank you all for having me here tonight. And I'm talking to everybody. People that are for me, people that are against me, and the people that are going to decide. I value everybody's opinion. When it gets down to it, there are differences between us. I've got over 400 individual donors now. True grassroots, 4 times the amount of donors than my opponent does. When it comes to special interests, 84% of my money comes from the district, as opposed to 50% of my opponents. So we could talk special interest all day, but when it comes down to it, you have to find out who's going to go down to Austin, stand, and fight for you guys, period. Who's going to stand up for your values and your morals because they've been hijacked by tolerance and fear. Period. So what you guys need to decide is, are you as tired of it as I am? Are you as tired of non-answers? Well, I told you tonight where I stand, and it's pretty succinct where I stand. So that's the way I am. If I'm down there for one term, I'm down there for one term. But every minute of it, I'll be fighting for you, because that's all I'm going to do 100% of the time. I'm not going home to do anything else. It's there to fight for you guys to stand. And thank you all for being here. And I appreciate your vote.
Gentlemen, thank you for coming to Eastland County. Thank y'all. Appreciate you being here.